Let's be real. When a man starts messing with your emotions, it feels like he's got all the control. He's hot one day, cold the next, leaves you questioning yourself, and before you know it, you're doubting your worth. But here's the truth. The moment you stop reacting to his games and start responding with strategy, that's when everything changes. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how to outsmart a man who thrives on emotional manipulation without losing your peace, your dignity, or your power. When a man is messing with your emotions, the very first thing you have to understand is this: he's feeding off your reaction. That's the fuel. That's the reward. When he pulls away and you panic, when he says something sharp and you instantly get defensive, when he disappears and you blow up his phone, you're giving him exactly what he wants, proof that he can pull the strings on your heart like a puppet. The way you break that cycle is by switching from reaction to observation. You stop being the one who jumps every time he pushes a button, and you start being the one who steps back, studies the pattern, and chooses when and how to move. Think about it. If every time he throws out a little jab you bite, he learns, oh, this works, I can keep doing this. But if you pull back and start observing, something powerful happens. You begin to see the game for what it really is. You start noticing the timing of his moods, the way he creates tension, and then acts like he's the one who can release it, the moments he's extra sweet only after being cold. Instead of being trapped in it, you're studying it. And when you study a game, you're already halfway to winning it. Observation takes the spotlight off your emotions and shines it right on his behavior. It's not about ignoring your feelings, it's about separating what you feel from what's actually happening. When you do that, you stop being so easily thrown off balance. You stop asking, what did I do wrong? And you start asking, why is he doing this now? That small shift is everything, because the one who is asking better questions is the one who has the power. Now here's the thing: observation requires patience. It requires you to breathe through the urge to react. That's the hardest part, because manipulation thrives on impulse. He wants you heated, flustered, confused, because when you're in that state, you're not thinking clearly. But when you can take a breath, pause, and just watch, you steal the momentum away. Suddenly, he's the one left wondering, why didn't she respond? Why isn't she chasing? Why is she so calm? That's when the balance starts to shift, and don't underestimate the effect this has on you. The moment you start observing instead of reacting, you reclaim your clarity. You start recognizing patterns not just in him, but in yourself too. How you respond, what triggers you, what you've been tolerating. That awareness is like armor. Because once you see it clearly, you can't be played the same way again. It's like knowing the magician's trick. You can still watch the show, but you'll never be fooled by it. Some of you might say, but staying quiet feels like letting him win. No, it's not silence out of weakness. It's silence out of strength. It's choosing to hold your cards until you know the right time to play them. When you observe first, you keep control. And when you keep control, you create a shift he doesn't expect. Because the truth is, someone who plays with emotions isn't used to being studied. He's used to being followed, forgiven, excused. But when you're standing there calm, eyes open, no longer reacting the way you used to, he's not holding the power anymore. You are. So remember this: the game only works if you play it blind. Once you open your eyes and watch with intention, you stop being the puppet and start being the one holding the strings. That's how you take the first step in outsmarting him. The second step to outsmarting a man who plays with your emotions is understanding the power of boundaries. See, a man who tests you emotionally will always keep pushing to see how far you'll go, how much you'll tolerate, and how much of yourself you'll sacrifice just to keep him around. And the more he sees you bend, the more he believes he can break you. But boundaries change the entire game, because they aren't walls to keep people out. They're doors that teach people how to come in. Boundaries are not about punishing him. They're about protecting you. They're about saying, This is what I allow, and this is where I draw the line. And when you put those lines in place, you're not only teaching him how to treat you, you're teaching yourself that your peace matters more than his approval. The mistake so many people make is thinking that boundaries will scare a man away. The truth is, if a man is scared of your boundaries, he was never there for the right reasons in the first place. A man who respects you will respect your limits. A man who doesn't respect you will reveal himself the moment you set them. And that's information you need. Think about it this way: when you walk into someone's house, you take off your shoes if they ask you to. You don't argue, you don't test them, you simply respect the rule. Why? Because it's their space, and you know you're either going to honor it or you won't be welcome there. Your life, your energy, your emotions, they are your house. And a man who steps into it should know what's expected of him. If he can't respect that, then he doesn't get to stay. Here's the problem though. So many of you are afraid to set boundaries because you don't want to lose him. You don't want him to think you're difficult or demanding. But let me tell you, if you don't set those boundaries, you will lose something far more important. You'll lose yourself. And once you lose yourself, you're no longer outsmarting him, you're just surviving him. Boundaries keep that from happening. Now here's the part that requires courage. Boundaries have to have teeth. They can't just be words. If you say, "Don't talk to me like that," but then allow it again and again, those words mean nothing. A boundary only works if you're willing to enforce it. And enforcement doesn't mean yelling or fighting. It means calmly sticking to your standard and letting your actions back it up. If he ignores your boundary, you adjust your level of access to him. Less of your time, less of your energy, less of your availability. You don't threaten it, you live it. And that's what truly outsmarts someone who tries to mess with you emotionally. Because here's what manipulative men thrive on: predictability. They rely on you folding when they push. They rely on you apologizing for wanting more. They rely on you breaking your own rules just to keep them happy. But when you draw that line and hold it steady, suddenly he's the one caught off guard. He realizes he can't keep crossing into your space without consequence. And that forces him to either step up or step out. Here's the beauty of it: no matter which choice he makes, you win. If he steps up, you've just set the foundation for a healthier connection. If he steps out, you've just cleared space for someone better who respects you from the start. Either way, boundaries protect your worth and make sure you never settle for less than you deserve. So don't be afraid to make them clear, make them firm, and make them non-negotiable. Because the moment you show a man that you know how to protect your peace, that's the moment he learns he can't play with it. One of the most overlooked ways to outsmart a man who's playing with your emotions is by controlling your energy. A man who knows he has unlimited access to you, to your attention, to your time, starts taking it for granted. He assumes you'll always answer, you'll always be there, you'll always bend when he pulls away. And when you give someone constant access like that, you remove the mystery. You remove the very thing that makes your presence valuable, your ability to step back and create space. See, attention is like currency. The more freely you give it, the less it's worth. But when you know how to pull back at the right moments, when you stop pouring energy into someone who only invests half-heartedly, you shift the power dynamic. Because suddenly, he's the one noticing the silence. He's the one questioning, why isn't she reaching out? Why isn't she reacting like before? Where did all that attention go? And when those questions start spinning in his head, that's when he realizes what your presence truly meant. This isn't about playing games. It's about valuing yourself. Think about the last time you lost something valuable. Maybe it was your keys. Maybe it was your phone. You didn't appreciate it every second you had it in your hand, but the moment it was gone, you noticed. The absence created urgency. It made you search for it, retrace your steps, do whatever it took to get it back. That's exactly how energy works in relationships. Sometimes It's not your constant presence that makes the impact, it's your strategic absence. But here's where it gets tricky. Pulling back doesn't mean punishing him. It doesn't mean giving the silent treatment out of spite or disappearing to make him chase. That's manipulation, and that's not what we're talking about. This is about alignment. If he's pulling away, you don't chase harder. You match his energy. If he's inconsistent, you don't overcompensate. You protect your space. And when he expects you to always be available, you remind him, without saying a word, that your time and your attention are privileges, not guarantees. What happens when you do this is powerful. You start to see his true intentions surface. A man who actually values you will notice the shift and rise to meet you. He'll realize he can't take your attention for granted, and he'll put in the effort to earn it again. But a man who only wants control will get frustrated, because without your constant reaction, his grip loosens. And when that happens, you have clarity. You see who's really there for you, and who's only there for the chase. And the truth is, this isn't just about him. It's about you. It's about remembering that your energy is sacred. Not everyone deserves unlimited access to it. The more you learn to protect it, the more you'll find peace in yourself, and the less you'll need external validation to feel whole. Because when you stop giving all of your energy away, you start giving it back to yourself. And that's where your strength, your confidence, and your clarity grow. So don't be afraid to create space. Don't be afraid to step back. Don't be afraid to let your absence speak louder than your presence. Because when you do, you'll quickly learn that the man who truly values you won't be threatened by the distance. He'll be inspired to close it. One of the sharpest tools you can use when someone is trying to mess with your emotions is silence. Most people underestimate it because we're taught that the way to stand up for ourselves is to argue, to explain, to make the other person see our side. But here's the truth. When you argue with someone who manipulates, you're not defending yourself, you're feeding them. They thrive off your raised voice, your long explanations, your desperate need for clarity. The more you talk, the more they know they've got you hooked. That's why silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It takes away the reward they're looking for. When you don't respond right away, when you don't rush to defend yourself, you shift the control back into your hands. Silence forces him to sit with his own words, his own behavior. And for someone who's used to pulling the strings, that's uncomfortable. He can't read you. He can't predict your next move. He can't get the satisfaction of seeing you break. That unpredictability makes him lose the power he thought he had. Now, let's be clear, silence doesn't mean you ignore everything forever. It doesn't mean you bottle things up and never address issues. It means you choose when and how to respond instead of letting him dictate the moment. It means you pause long enough to make sure your words carry weight, not just heat. Because when you finally do speak, it's deliberate, it's calm, and it's strong. That kind of response lands a lot harder than anything said out of frustration. Think about how many times you've regretted saying something in the heat of the moment. You type that long text, you send it, and 5 minutes later, you wish you had just waited. But when you use silence, you give yourself space to think, to process, to decide if the situation even deserves your energy at all. Sometimes the smartest move isn't to fight back. It's to let him drown in the echo of his own behavior. Silence is also a mirror. It reflects back to him the weight of his actions without you needing to spell it out. When you don't rush in to smooth things over, when you don't jump to keep the peace, you're showing him that his behavior has consequences. And often, that's more powerful than any lecture you could give, because silence makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to question themselves. And in that space, the truth starts to hit harder than your words ever could. Of course, choosing silence requires strength. It's not easy to sit still when everything in you wants to react. But that discipline is what separates people who get pulled into emotional games from people who rise above them. Silence shows that you're not desperate for his attention, You're not dependent on his reaction, and you're not controlled by his attempts to provoke you. It shows that you're steady, and steadiness is something no manipulator knows how to handle. And here's the beautiful part: silence isn't just for him, it's for you. It gives you peace. It keeps you from carrying the weight of constant arguments. It protects your energy from being drained in pointless back and forths. It gives you the clarity to see what's really happening instead of being blinded by emotional chaos. So the next time he tries to provoke, remember this: not every word deserves a reply, not every move deserves a reaction. Sometimes the strongest answer you can give is no answer at all. When a man is trying to manipulate your emotions, one of the most effective ways to outsmart him is by calmly calling out the inconsistencies in his words and actions. Notice I said calmly, because the power isn't just in what you say, it's in how you say it. If he tells you one thing and does another, you don't need to yell, you don't need to accuse, and you definitely don't need to break down. You simply point it out steady and clear, like holding up a mirror. You said this, but now you're doing that. That's it. No drama, no begging for an explanation, no desperate need to make him admit it. Just truth, spoken without heat. Here's why this works. Manipulators thrive in chaos. They want you emotional, they want you defensive, because when you're upset, you're distracted. You stop paying attention to the facts and start fighting to be understood. But when you stay calm, when you stick to the truth and don't get pulled into the storm, you take away the chaos they're trying to create. They can spin words all they want, but they can't argue with reality when you lay it out plain. It also forces them to confront something they're not used to: accountability. Most of the time, men who play games with your emotions are experts at slipping out of responsibility. They'll deflect, they'll change the subject, they'll turn it back on you. But when you calmly call out the contradiction, you make it harder for them to escape. You're not handing them the emotional reaction they expected, and that alone shifts the entire dynamic. They can't paint you as crazy or overreacting when you're standing there with composure, pointing directly to the evidence. And here's the thing: this approach isn't just about exposing him, it's about protecting you. Because every time you calmly highlight the truth, you're reminding yourself that you're not the problem. You're not overthinking, you're not imagining things. You're seeing reality for what it is. And that clarity keeps you from being trapped in the cycle of self-doubt that manipulators want you stuck in. Now, does this mean he'll suddenly change because you pointed it out? Not necessarily. Some men will double down, some will deny, some will even laugh it off. But the goal isn't to fix him, it's to keep you steady. Because once you establish that calm strength, once you refuse to be rattled by his contradictions, he realizes he's not in control of your emotions anymore. And when he loses that control, he either has to step up and align his actions with his words, or he'll reveal even more clearly that he's not worth your time. Either way, you win, because you're operating from truth instead of reaction. This takes practice, and it takes confidence. It's easier to snap back, to raise your voice, to demand answers. But the person who can hold composure under pressure always has the upper hand. Calmness is a form of dominance. It tells him, without you ever saying it, that his games don't shake you and his words don't define you. So don't waste your energy trying to argue with lies. Don't exhaust yourself begging for consistency. Just point out the gap between what he says and what he does, and let the silence after your words do the work. Because nothing disarms a manipulator faster than someone who refuses to get emotional and instead stands tall in the truth. The final and most important step in outsmarting a man who's messing with your emotions is shifting the focus back to yourself. Because let's be honest, when someone plays with your feelings, they want you trapped in their orbit. They want your time, your thoughts, your energy consumed by trying to figure them out. And the more you focus on them, the less you focus on you. That's exactly how they keep the upper hand. The way you flip the script is by redirecting that attention and energy toward your own growth, your own happiness, your own life. See, here's the trap. Emotional manipulation makes you believe that if you just work harder, love deeper, give more, you'll finally get the version of him you've been hoping for. But that hope is what keeps you stuck. And the truth is, the version of him you're waiting for may never come. That's why the smartest move you can make isn't about fixing him, it's about building you. When you put the focus back on yourself, you start reclaiming the parts of you that got lost in the process. Maybe you stopped doing the things that once brought you joy. Maybe you've been so wrapped up in his moods that you stopped chasing your own goals. Maybe you've been measuring your worth by how much attention he gives you. But when you shift your focus, you begin to remember who you are outside of him. You start investing that same energy you were giving away into building a life that excites you, fulfills you, and strengthens you. And here's the paradox. When you stop centering him, you stop being so easy to manipulate. Because suddenly his approval isn't the oxygen you breathe. His attention isn't the prize you're chasing. You've got your own fire, your own direction, your own fulfillment. And that makes you untouchable. A man can only play with your emotions if he knows your emotions revolve around him. But when they don't, when your happiness is self-sustained, he loses the ability to control it. Think about the energy shift that creates. Instead of anxiously waiting for his texts, you're busy building your own projects. Instead of replaying arguments in your head, you're making time for people who actually bring you peace. Instead of questioning your worth, you're reminding yourself of it every day through the choices you make for you. That's not just a mindset change. It's a complete power shift. Because the moment he realizes he's no longer the center of your world, the game is over. And let me be clear, this isn't about being cold or closed off. It's not about shutting love out. It's about creating balance, about making sure that no matter what anyone else does, your foundation stays strong. When your sense of worth is rooted in yourself, not in someone else's inconsistent behavior, no one can pull you off track. You become harder to shake, harder to confuse, harder to manipulate. The best way to outsmart someone who plays with your emotions is to stop letting them be the focus of your emotions. Put that focus back on you, on the things that make you grow, on the people who pour into you, on the goals that light you up. Because when you become whole on your own, no man can play games with pieces of you he doesn't control.